So welcome, Marina and Sophia and Roxy and Marquette and Jack and Jacqueline. Thanks for coming. This is actually the very last regular class or webinar that we have for this class. And let me go and jump into the quiz. Okay, so here's your quiz. So suppose a study was done to see if the average age of California community college students is the same as those who take for those who take statistics, calculus, and other GE math classes. The results of the study are shown below. Use a 5% level of significance. Okay, so let me scroll to where I've copied and pasted it. So the first question is, what's the name of the hypothesis test to be used? This is probably easy for everyone. What do we call it? Hopefully you can hear me. So what's the name of the hypothesis test to be used?
Analysis of variance, ANOVA.
Yeah, analysis of variance, or shorthand as ANOVA is just fine. And that's the answer. Okay, I want to let you know that it's not hard on the quiz because that's the only test we had on Tuesday. But on the final next week, understanding the name of the hypothesis test means that it could be any of them. You can't say, well, it's this week. So let me talk about why this is analysis of variance, because that's going to help you for the final exam. So the idea here is we have three different populations: the population of stat students, the population of calculus students, the population of other GE class students. And then the data for that was given from each member of the population, or a sample in this case. It's very clear these are numbers, 22, 18. So we're talking about three quantitative variables. And we want to see if the average, and average in statistics is called is the mean, or the population mean. We want to see if they're the same for all three of them. So there's three, which is more than two. So you can't do a chapter 10 type of thing where you can't look at in comparison between two means, because there's three of them. And when you're comparing more than two means, that's ANOVA. Any questions on classifying this as ANOVA? Okay, again, it's not hard in the quiz because it's the only one we've got and you knew it was coming. But the final exam, I'll ask you the same question and you have to know. I wrote ANOVA and test for mean. Yeah, I mean, I probably wouldn't take off points, but really it's just an ANOVA. If you wrote analysis of variance as longhand. If you said test for the difference between several means, that would be better. Because a test for a mean, so if it's not plural, then that would be a chapter 9 kind of, a test for a single population mean. Yeah. So there's three, so it's not, so it's plural, it's not singular. Okay. Again, I probably wouldn't take off points, but it's important that you kind of know that ANOVA is about multiple means, not one. Okay. So write down the null hypothesis. So last time I showed you what the null hypothesis looks like. And hopefully you all know to put H naught colon. And then what do we write? So what's the null hypothesis?
Mu sub 1 equals mu sub 2 equals mu sub 3.
Yeah, I like to use the letters of what they are because it kind of speaks better, but I wouldn't take out points if you wrote 1, 2, and 3. But mu sub S for stats equals mu sub C for calculus equals mu sub O for other. Any questions on this? Okay, and I want to remind you, especially for the final, is that you are allowed to use the equation editor to make it all pretty if you want to, but it's not required. Okay, so writing mu is just fine. Okay, but if you want to use the equation editor to make it prettier, you can do that. I tend to do that on when I give lecture examples, but I don't when I'm showing you a quiz because you got to get through this in 20 minutes. Okay, write down the alternative hypothesis. Okay, and remember what isn't correct would be say mu sub s is not equal to mu sub c and not equal to mu sub o. That you can't say. So what do you say on this one?
At least two are different.
Yeah, at least two of the population means and these are mean ages is what the question was about. Differ. Any questions on that? Okay, now the test statistic and the p-value, how do we find that? Hopefully you all know by now, how do you find the test statistic and p-value?
Calculator.
Yeah, we go to the calculator. So I'm gonna copy these guys just so it'll save time. And then I'll go to my calculator and I hope you all know which calculator to use. Which one?
25.
25. It's ANOVA. Once you have the name of the test, you know what calculator to use. Okay, so then we go ahead and data 1, I copy and paste. And then we go to data 2. Going to copy and paste that. And then we're going to go to data 3. And I copy and paste that. Any questions on entering the data in and going to the ANOVA calculator? Okay, then we scroll and we hit calculate. And the test statistic is an F distribution, 3.95 or so. So let's write that down. So the test statistic, oops, where'd it go? Is F is equal to 3.95. And the p-value is equal to 0.0308. Any questions on finding the test statistic and the p-value? All right, now we need to state the conclusion. What are the first few words of the conclusion, given the fact that we have a p-value of 0.0308?
There is statistically
What's the next word's really important? There is statistically what?
Significant.
This one's significant, good, because 0.0308 is less than your standard level of significance, which I think I even gave you is 0.05. So statistically significant evidence to conclude that, and now we can say just copy and paste the answer to part C and fix the grammar. Lowercase a, that at least 2 of the population mean ages differ. Any questions on the conclusion? Any questions? Okay, then finally, what assumptions must be made in order for this to be a valid study? So this is kind of a list. I'm going to write 1. What's the first assumption that you have to make?
That each of the distributions are approximately normal.
Yeah, and notice, and this is important to look at, if you look at the sample sizes, they're all small. So this is the largest one, and that was what, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So we have 12 and less for the sample sizes. So we can't use the central limit theorem to say that we have a normal sampling distribution. Instead, we just have to, give up and assume, which is probably wrong. So the 3 distributions, let's go sampling, distributions are approximately normal. What else must we assume?
Simple random sampling technique is used.
Okay, that's definitely one of them. So SRS, okay, or no bias, because that's what matters, occurred in the collection of the data. Okay, that's another one. There's some more. We're not done yet. We got a while. What's another one?
The samples are independent.
Okay, the samples are independent of each other. Okay, which is probably the case because there's no reason to think that, this student in data 1 that was taking statistics, who's 22 years old, and anything to do with this student in data 2 who's taking calculus that's 19 years old, etc. So the independent one is almost certainly true. Any questions on that? It would actually be hard to make a dependent sample on this one. Okay, then there's some more. What's a 4th assumption?
The standard deviations must be like the same or similar.
Yeah, the 3 population standard deviations are all the same or similar to each other. Actually close. Okay, and that's an assumption that, at least for this class, we have no clue on. There are ways of looking at it, but we don't know how to do that yet, and ever in this class. So you need to take more stats to learn how to address that assumption. And there is one more.
I think someone put it in the chat.
Let's see. Survey was conducted the same way for all groups. Yep, there it is. The survey was conducted the same way for each of the 3 groups. of students. Any questions on the assumptions that you need to be able to do ANOVA? Okay, and as I mentioned, we're not getting deep into these, like how do you decide if they're right and stuff like that, especially the standard deviation one, because that one we have no idea. Okay, that one you need some advanced stats. Okay, approximately normal, you basically need a sample size over 30 for each of them, and that's hard to do. Simple random sampling, no bias, that we know how to do because that was your project one, had to kind of deal with no bias or eliminating bias, some bias at least. The independent of each other, that's usually an easy one as long as you're not asking one person several questions kind of thing. So that's not what this was. Okay, again, standard deviation, we don't know how to do. And conduct in the same way for each of the 3 groups of students. And that has to do with just making sure that you're consistent when you're doing your study. Any questions at all on the last quiz of the whole class? Any questions?
I know, oh, this is kind of more like an exam question, but I know it wasn't specifically on the outline thingy, but are we gonna have to like list the assumptions on the exam? Like, the assumptions for all the different tests?
So it is fair game if I ask you to do that.
Okay.
What I'm not going to do on any of your questions is say, yes, it's exactly what you're going to have to do. But anything that we have done in class is fair game. Okay, which means that this, we've had a lot of material, so there's a lot of studying to do. Okay, and you are allowed to have a note sheet, which I'm going to get to in a second. In fact, I think I'll do it this way. Okay, so let's get back. And I'm going to ask you if there's any general questions that you might have. Again, I'm going to talk about the exam pretty deeply. We have a lot of time, so. But any non-exam questions, and then as we go with talking about the exam, that's a good time to ask. Any questions? Okay, just a reminder, there's not too much left. You have chapter 13 assignment due on Sunday. It shouldn't take that long. That's not the harder one. So basically, mostly what you're going to be doing from now on is focusing on the final. Okay, that should be your focus. Again, there is a homework assignment, but other than that, it's just your final exam is what you're focusing on. Any questions? Okay, so if there's no questions, let's get to talk about the final exam. The first thing, and that's why I popped it over here, is I want to make sure that we've got it here. There's a syllabus, and let me remind you of a few things. Okay, the first thing is the final exam is on June 22nd, which is Tuesday. Okay, and it goes from 4 to 6. So again, it's 4 to 5:50, but I'm going to allow you to have 10 extra minutes if you need some extra time. And that's the college's rule. So I just stick with the rule of the college, and that's what I have to do. And that's the timing of your exam. So it's 4 to 6 on June 22nd, and it is worth 200 points. Notice that if you look at all the things we've done so far, the final is the biggest. Okay, so the final exam is worth more than either of the other exams. It's worth more than the projects. It's worth more than all the quizzes combined. In fact, it's twice as much as all the quizzes combined, and it's twice as much as all the homework assignments combined. So take it seriously. Okay, take it really seriously, which means, practice, practice, practice. That's the most important thing. Okay, if it doesn't go well, that's not good. If it goes great, it'll be wonderful.
Wait, in the grade section, it doesn't say that it's worth 200 points. It says it's worth 148.
3, 6, 8. I'll take a look at that. I'll fix it if it doesn't.
Like it says, yeah, so it says that it's worth 148.
Oh, right. Okay, I know what it is. Okay, I know what you're talking about. So let me tell you, it's a Canvas thing. And it's a little bit weird in that Canvas looks at how many points there are on, it adds up all the points for the individual questions, and it shows you that total points. That's different than the contribution of the final exam for your course grade. So what Canvas will then do is it'll take the however many points it was, 240 or whatever you said, and it'll turn your grade into a percent, and then it'll multiply your percent by 200 points, and then that's the weighting towards your course grade. Does that make sense?
Not at all.
Okay, I know it's a bit complicated. So the number, if you look at the points, so the points per question, if you add them all those up, that's not 200 points. So these are the points for your course grade. So what this means is that 20% of your course grade is the final exam. So if you get an A on your final exam, then 20% of your course grade is entered in as an A. Okay. So what it's going to do is it's going to figure out what percent you got on the final exam. It's going to take that percent, multiply by 200, and that's how many points go into your course grade. So I know it can be a little confusing, but that's what it is that it's the contribution to the course is 20%.
One other question, sorry. So when you know the thing that you can do on Canvas where you can like enter in a like, oh, what if I get this grade on this assignment, then how will that affect my grade? Is that accurate for the final exam?
I think so. The weird thing is I don't have the ability to check it because I'm not a student. So I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously, you know,
sorry about
I'm gonna
that.
try. I need to know that I just like to guarantee to myself that I will pass.
Yeah. Sorry if I don't have a good answer to that. It's one of those weird ones that I don't have the ability to know because only students can see it. Does that make sense? So sorry about that.
Yeah, no, you're all good. I just wanted to like make sure that I'm not like that what I think is a passing grade is actually a passing grade. I mean, obviously I'm gonna try, but like having that there and like the whole, hey, even if I do this, even if I get this grade on the test, I'll still pass the class, helps me sleep at night. I need that.
So here's a formula if you want to put in the chat box. Okay. Again, because I hope Canvas does it right, but because I'm not a student, I can't do it. So I can show you I could do a math formula for you. It's not that hard, I promise. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your percent for so far. And then you're going to multiply that by 0.8. And then you're going to add that to your guess of your percent for the final times 0.2. So that's the formula. And if you plug that in, then that'll give you what your predicted grade is. Okay, or percent actually.
Wait, that's like actually really useful.
Yeah, so that's a math formula. The good thing is you're asking the right guy. I know math real well, but that's a math formula, and that's not just for my class. That's for, you know, whatever the final is. If it was a 30% for a different class, you've got it. You take that 0.2, you make it a 0.3, and you take the 0.8, and you make it a 0.7. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that is one thing in this course that has made so much sense.
Oh, good. So that's a math formula that is general. It's not a statistics thing, but it's good to know. And hopefully Canvas has their act together and that's what they're doing. Okay, unfortunately, I don't have the access to it. I can't pretend I'm you to check. Okay, other questions?
That might be difficult.
Yeah, yeah. Any questions? Okay, so let me go a little bit more into the syllabus to remind you some more about the final. Did I miss it? Yeah, there it is. Okay. All right. So you're going to use for the final. Does it not say? Oh, it's supposed to. Let me fix it as we speak. I fixed it in my other class, but I didn't fix it in this one. Believe it or not, I used to be more strict. And for the final, you may use a full 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, front and back. Okay, so that means that you put a lot on there. Okay, and whatever you put on, that's up to you. What you should put in, what helps you. Obviously, there's a few formulas. There aren't that many in this class. There's the sample size. I guess there's the z-score formula we had. There was some sample size, margin of error possibly. But we haven't had that many formulas if you think about it. Okay. And the calculator will be available. There's no question about that. That's going to be part of your tool, just like the other exams. So formulas are probably less important for this 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. More important are kind of putting in thoughts that will help you on topics. Okay, and again, it's one I can't read your mind, so I don't know exactly what you need. Okay, but you get that full piece of paper, you can put whatever you want, you show it to Proctorio, and then it knows that you've used that paper. Okay, if you want to bring blank paper, you can do that. You have to show the blank paper also. And if you want to use blank paper, that's fine. But I want to let you know is that anything you write on the blank paper, I don't see. So I can't give you points for anything on the blank paper. Okay, so all of your work needs to be put into Canvas, just like the other exams. Okay. The main thing is we are going to be using Proctorio. So if you got Proctorio to work for you last time and the time before, and you have the same computer, you shouldn't have a problem. Okay. So hopefully everyone's okay with the Proctorio because now you've had practice. Okay, two major exams where you had to practice, and the final is going to be the same. Any questions on kind of what to expect in terms of just nuts and bolts?
I had a question on, are we allowed to use just like a regular, I forget what model I have, but like a Texas Inspire calculator, just to do like basic math really quickly?
You can't use that, but let me show you in case you don't already know. I don't know. I'll go to ANOVA. I put them in every one of them. Do you know about the scientific calculator button?
Oh, is that on every of the questions?
Every single calculator, every question that needs calculation.
Okay.
Every calculator has a scientific calculator button.
Okay.
And that's something I put in. It turns out Proctorio has a scientific calculator, but honestly, it's really hard to use. Actually, I don't even know. I've never seen it, but my students hated it a year ago. And that was one of the suggestions they had for this calculator is to have a scientific calculator. So this is in there. So if you want to do basic, I don't know, 8.4, divided by the square root. I can click square root of 23. I'm just making some stuff up. And there it is, 1.75. And the nice thing is you can copy and paste. You can copy that and paste it wherever you want.
Okay, yeah, that's really helpful. Thank
That's
you.
a lot easier. And so you're not allowed to use a handheld calculator. And the reason is it looks too much like a smartphone. And then a big red flag happens. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But this is easier. Okay, it's easier because it's built in. You can copy and paste it into wherever you got to put it in the regular calculator. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, and this is this little scientific calculator buttons in every one of them. Takes a lot of space, so I hid it unless you click on scientific calculator. So if you've never seen it, now you've seen it. Okay, and it has everything, by the way, or everything you would need. Uh-huh.
It's kind of a dumb question, but I mean, I thought I'd ask it anyways. Are we using every single calculator on here, or is it, because I've taken other finals and usually not all of most of the materials on there, but not all of it. So I just wanted to know, because I've been studying them, like all of them.
So let me tell you this. If I put every single thing that we've had in this class on the final, it would be a disaster because it would take you 6 hours. Don't you agree? So the answer is no, I can't put everything on. So I apologize if your favorite thing isn't on. I don't know what your favorite thing is, but the point is I just put some important ones, and I'll get to what's guaranteed to be on. There's some things that are guaranteed and some things that are maybes.
Are you gonna do what you've done for the past 2 exams where you tell us like problem by problem?
Not quite as much, because there's a lot of maybes where I want you to know it all, and then you'll get to the test, and if you know it all, you'll be able to do all the any of the problem I give you, even though I don't test you on everything.
So you're not going to do like breaking it down by problem, like question 5 will be a thing of a thing of a thing of a thing.
Yeah, I'm not going to quite give it to you that way. Sorry about that.
But some of them are kind of obvious, like the most recent one, like not all of them, but like ANOVA and like kind of like that, right?
It's obvious if you've practiced.
Yeah.
And if you haven't practiced, it won't be obvious. Yeah, it's one of those things that all depends on who, how much you've practiced. And if you practiced a lot, then they're all going to be obvious. Does that make sense? But if you haven't practiced much, some will be obvious, some won't. If you don't practice at all, none of them will be obvious, and it'll go poorly. So practice is everything. Okay, let me get into, at least I can somewhat answer the question, but only a little bit. So here is the idea of the final, but I'm not getting it into quite as much because I can't. Because otherwise you'll end up like saying, oh, well, this one's not on, so I don't even have to look at it. But I do want you to, basically a final exam shows that you have all the information from the course learned. Okay. And so I'm not going to tell you what's not going to be on it, because then you wouldn't even bother looking at it. You'd pretend like, you wouldn't even try to learn it or relearn it. Okay. So we'll tell you the first question. Word for word is right here. Same one as you had in exam 1, same as you had in exam 2. It's basically the honesty question. Okay.
How many points is this one?
So here's how it works. Actually, I put at 1 point. I probably should point 0.01. If you don't answer this one with your name, I give you zeros on everything else, because that means you are saying you're cheating. Okay. And it's just putting your name on it. So it's not like, some technical thing, but it's your statement that you are not cheating. Does that make sense? Okay, then the next question, there's actually 6 of them, are questions to classify the statistical test or interval. I do want to let you know they're only 3 points each, which is different than the full length ones, which are 15 points each, because they're quick present. So if you look at this and you say there's 21 questions on the test, that'd be way too long for if they were like quiz type questions for a 2-hour test. But these 6 questions, they'll go really fast. You look at it and you click on which kind of thing it is. So let me show you what I mean by that and show you a way to study too. If you go to the modules, and you go to, maybe I should pretend I didn't go there, and you scroll down to the bottom and you go to comprehensive final and you go to review applets. And then you open up the review applets right there. You will see practice classifying statistics problems. Any questions on this? Any questions? Okay, and I will let you know, this has actually been used by over 5 million people, 5 million students. It is my most used app of all the apps. And I have no idea what happened, but for some reason, it seems like every AP stat student in America is using this now. It went down like because of snow once because of our college. And I think the entire country emailed me. It was a disaster.
So you made this?
Yeah, I'm a programmer. Yeah, I've done, you've seen the calculator. I've done a lot of stuff. Okay, so it's the final exam. So what do you think you want to select? Which ones?
All of them.
Yeah, so if you click select all, it just does it all at once. You don't have to click them one at a time. Okay, if you want to just practice a couple of them, you can do that. And then let's hit submit. Maybe we'll do a couple of these. I put there's hundreds of these in here, by the way. So is there evidence to suggest that community college students spend more time at work than at school? 80 community college students were asked about the hours they spent working and the hours they spent at school. All right, see if you can tell me or put in the chat box, which do you think is the right answer? Which of these? And it's okay to get it wrong. You know, it's not okay on the final, then you lose lots of points or some points, 3 points. But when you're practicing, it's okay to get it wrong. So you should at least guess. Okay, hypothesis test for proportions. Let's try it. So if I click on a hypothesis test for so you probably mean hypothesis tests for difference between two proportions. That's my guess is what you meant. If I click on that, first thing it gives you that little unhappy face. And then it tells you, it's got a little kind of AI built in that I created. So it based on what you tried and what the right answer is, it gives you a hint. So you should definitely pay attention to the hint. Here it says the variables are quantitative. We do not have yes or no questions. Please try again. Any questions on that? So we definitely know it's not going to be proportions. Okay. So let's try. I saw hypothesis test for paired data. If you click on that, we got it right. Okay. Any questions on this app? Okay. If you want to do another one, you click next question, by the way. Okay. I wrote this in JavaScript, so this should work on your smartphone, by the way. How do you get to it? So let me remind you again. Let me show you. You go to modules. You go to the very bottom. Let's pretend that we didn't go to the bottom, so it went up here. So you scroll down to the bottom. You hit comprehensive final, because we're studying for the final. You hit review applets. Then you click right here on the review applets. And it's a practice classifying statistics problems app. Okay, I made a lot of these. The bad news is a lot of these I wrote in Flash many years ago, and Flash got killed last year, so I was crying. So sorry about that. But the ones that say new should work. And then that's it. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? If you want, I can give you the direct link too. I'll put in the chat box. Okay. This is actually also on LibreText. It was so important that I thought, I should have 2 copies of it. So if our college server gets hacked, which happened about, it was awful, about 18 years ago, I lost everything because the college lost everything. So I got a copy of this because this was such a big thing. Any questions at all on what the first questions are going to look like? Okay, and they're not going to look exactly like this because Canvas has a different presentation, but basically it's the same thing. There we go. Okay, so there's going to be 6 of those. And notice they're 3 points each. Don't spend a huge amount of time on them. 6 times 3 is 18. So they're a little more than one of these last 7 questions. Okay, all combined. So again, they should be quick. How many do you think you need to practice until you practiced enough? How do you know when you practiced enough? Yeah, and I wouldn't say all because all is ambiguous. I would say that if you get like 5 of them right in a row, then you probably got it. Then you've got the feel for it. Does that make sense? And you're probably going to have to practice a bunch until that happens. Okay, so again, you need to start getting them consistently, and then you're good. Any questions at all on the first part of the final? Okay, then the next part, there's 8 true/false questions. They're also 3 points each, which is still, not that many points compared to the rest of the test. How do you practice true/false questions? Where have you seen true/false questions, in fact?
On the quiz.
Yep, the quiz. Yeah,
I'm at home.
I don't usually give quizzes on true/false on the quizzes.
I'm at homework. I don't know.
The homework. Yeah, the homework. Yeah, a couple of you put in homework. Yeah, so the homeworks have true/falses, and I do want to let you know I wrote those. So those are automated, all that, but I'm the one that created those. So the homework has a bunch of true/falses. Your 2 exams that you've taken have some true/falses. And then there is one more place you can practice true/falses. If you click on Review Applets again, you'll see Practice True/False questions. That's the next one. And the same thing, you can select all, you can submit, and then it gives you a bunch of true/false questions. Okay. Any questions on that?
I had a question on like if you go back to the document of the format. Because I saw on like the final structure, there were some problems from like chapters 2 through 9. Will those be true and false? Because it says like the full length are just in 10 through 13.
Not quite. So let me explain. Let me answer your question more specifically. So the first is the true/false. Anything's fair game. That could be chapter 13. It could be chapter 1. It could be chapter 6. Any chapter is fair game for the true/falses. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, then I haven't gotten to this yet, but let me get to the next one because we're there. So then there are 7 full-length questions. Okay, and those full-length questions, those look like the quiz questions, like what you did today. I guarantee that you're going to have to do a problem from chapter 10, chapter 11, chapter 12, and chapter 13. Okay, notice there's 4 of those. So that means there's 3 problems from earlier chapters, from 1 through 9. So it's definitely more heavily weighted for chapters 10, 11, 12, and 13. But that doesn't mean that there's nothing from the earlier chapters. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
So there's 3 earlier stuff, and then there's 1 from each of the other 4 chapters. And I will let you know, I'm not even going to tell you which one of the problems, but one of these is combined with earlier stuff. So you'll understand it when you see it. Okay, so one of the problems from 10, 11, 12, or 13, there's like parts A, B, C, D. I don't remember how many I gave. Maybe it's just A, B, C. And one of the parts is one of these chapters and the others are something else. So there are some combined chapter questions. Okay, but these 7 questions look a lot more like the quiz questions than the other 14 questions. Okay, and notice that there's 14 of these, but if you take 14, you multiply by 3, you get 42 points. So these first 14 questions are only worth 42 points for the final, whereas these 7 are 15 each, which is 105 points. So most of the exam is this right here. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? So make sure you don't spend most of your time on the first 14. They're real quick. There's no calculation to do basically, or hardly any if there's any, and you just answer it. You just click on the right answer. Click on true or false, or click on the type of confidence interval or test that you're going to be using. Any questions on what to expect for the final exam? Any questions? Okay. And I do want to let you know these are not ordered by chapter. Don't say that, no, the first 3 of them are going to be early chapters and it's going to be late. It doesn't work that way. I'm not even going to tell you how I ordered them because I want you to be able to kind of understand what to do when you see a question. Obviously, if it says state the null hypothesis, it's coming from one of the later chapters because it's hypothesis testing. Or if it says find the confidence interval, then it's going to be, chapter 8 or 10 are the confidence interval chapters. Any questions at all on these? Any questions? Okay, I want to show you some suggestions on how you can study. Let's go back to the syllabus. So the first thing I recommend doing is go to your recorded webinars. That's the YouTube channel with these. And what I recommend you doing is, let's go to one of the later ones because those are definitely going to have to do some of the stuff. So let's suppose, how about, let me grab one. That one. Is that the one I want? So then what you can do is you can fast forward a little bit. And there's the question. That was your quiz question. Okay, and if it's too small, you can make it bigger. And try to do it without watching the video. Just kind of go into that spot, see if you can answer these questions, and then listens to the next 5 minutes of video and see if you got it right. Any questions on that idea as a kind of a good mode of practice? Okay, so if you want to be able to have something that shows you a key, this has keys, okay, and kind of worked out solutions instead of just the answer, full explanations. And you could do that for every quiz you've taken. So that's kind of how I recommend practicing, is redoing all the quizzes this way. Any questions technologically on how to do that? Any questions? Okay, and we've had a lot of quizzes, so we've had probably 15 or something. There's been 23 lectures, and then so a little more than that actually, and then minus a couple exams and the first day and today. So maybe 21. So a lot of quizzes, and that will get you practiced with more of the things where you have to put things into Canvas. And I do recommend you practice typing. So if you can practice at least on a document or something, type your answers out. And that way that you're practicing how it's going to be on the exam instead of writing them on paper. Any questions on that as a tool for studying and practicing? Okay, and then there's a lot of other things that you can practice with. You can also do, so, for example, the videos of worked out example problems. If you click on that one, then there's a whole lot of these, and you can do the same thing. Click on one of them. This is a video, and then stop it, and then try to answer the question, and then watch the rest of the 3-minute video. So that's a good way of practicing. Any questions on that suggestion? Not sure if you thought about that before, but it's a good study tool. Okay, there's also the full-length YouTube videos, and that's another way of practicing. Again, you have lots of ways of practicing. If you do the LibreText, and that has all the later chapters. Doesn't have the first few chapters because I didn't get to them. I'll be doing that after the course is over, but the first few, there aren't really long problems anyway. So it has all the ones you really need. And you can do the same thing and grab one of them. About the chi-squared. And then go find an example. We're going to be, and that there. This is a goodness of fit. So there's an example, and let's see if you can answer it. Okay, and then you can watch the next few minutes. Any questions on that suggestion? I got a message. These are crash course stats videos. If that's what you got to call them, then that's what.
Not what I meant. Not what I meant. Like, you know the channel Crash Course?
I don't
Crash
actually.
Course World History, Crash Course Chemistry, Crash Course Biology. Like,
I never heard of it. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So I'm pretty sure all of us, if you don't know what Crash Course is, look up Crash Course statistics. They always on this channel make things super easily understandable, super clear and concise. I just found out that they have Crash Course videos on this. Like, that is how I passed so many classes in high school. So I'd recommend checking out the Crash Course videos as well.
That sounds good too. Now these will have the kind of language I use though. That's the only thing, and the expectations. But Crash Course sounds good. And honestly, when I was a student in college, this is going to sound bad, weird. The internet didn't exist. So
wow, congratulations, but it exists now.
Yeah, but that's why I don't know what Crash Course is. Because I never used it.
Well, I mean, pretty much if you want to know anything, Crash Course, my dude. It's great.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
I highly suggest it.
Yeah. I watch lectures, MIT lectures usually from courses. That's kind of what I do to learn. But we all have our thing. Any questions on this? So there are so many. Crash Course is one. There are so many collections of videos, but I'm showing you the ones I have because those are catered for this class. But the Crash Course probably have very similar things, is my guess. Good as a fit is good as a fit. It doesn't matter where you take it. I keep my class real standard. Okay, so those are some things that you can use. And you can also redo all the homework problems. You can redo the homework. So if you want to, I don't know, practice how about chapter 9 stuff just for fun, then that would be that one. And yours might look a little different because I'm the instructor, but then you can practice. Okay. And what I recommend doing is not quite the way this is set up. I recommend reading the paragraph and then doing the hypothesis test as though it was a quiz question, because I'm not going to give you a multiple choice on stating the conclusion. You're going to actually have to type out the conclusion. So what I recommend doing is try not to look anything low, answer this question, and see if you can answer it without reading all the rest of it. Then you can go try it and see if you get it right. So that's my recommendation on working out more problems from these. Okay. And also, because I wrote a lot of these, they're similar to what you'll get. Okay. Literally over 100,000 students are using these now, but I wrote them and it's the way I write things. So you get to get my style, whether you like it or not. But again, so does half of the community colleges in all of California, and a whole lot of other places use these things. Any questions at all on kind of ways of practicing? Any questions? Then I want to mention a couple more things. One is my office hours are the same office hours that I normally have. So I will have an office hour tomorrow from 10:10 to 11:10. And then I'll have an office hour Monday from 10:10 to 11:10. Tuesday, unfortunately, the office hour is after your final. Sorry about that. But I keep my same office hours. But that doesn't mean I'm not around. So if you need something, drop me an email and then I can answer. But there is somebody around, a lot more hours than mine, and that is Braulio. And Braulio, maybe
Hey.
yeah, maybe you can
Yeah.
chat about it.
Sure. My hours are pretty much stay the same. Their final is on Tuesday.
Yeah, their finals Tuesday at 4:00.
Okay, so in that case, the hours relevant to you would be Sunday and Monday, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. So that's 4 hours in the afternoon. But Tuesday, I'll be on from 9 a.m. all the way until the start of the final. And I'll post it up on the chat right now.
Yeah. Now you should be patient because nobody. I know you're superhuman, but nobody can go from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. without taking a bathroom break and that type of thing. So definitely be patient in case he's not like immediately there, right, Braulio?
Yeah, thank you. but yeah, I'll try my best to be there, as much as possible from 9 to 4. And if not, feel free to send me an email. I'll hop on quickly.
Yeah. So again, there's help for you. Okay, we're here for you. There's lots of materials for practice. You know what's coming at you, but you got to make sure that between now and Tuesday, you set up some time to practice and to work at it. And the most important thing is practice problems. Okay, and then get help when you're lost on something and don't know how to do it. Okay, and that's Braulio's there for you. I'm here for you, and we can help you out. But if you don't practice and get the help, then you're just hoping for luck, and luck doesn't usually happen without work. Okay, but we're definitely here for you, and hopefully I'd love it if I start grading the test and everyone's getting them right. I should let you know also, I grade differently for the final exam. And that is, I don't put in comments because the final is the final. It's not going to help you for the next exam. So I just give scores and don't type out a whole lot of comments. That way I can get them done. And And then I should have them done hopefully by Wednesday. I should have your grades in. So that's the hope. It takes me less time because I don't have to type in all the comments, because the comments aren't going to help you for any next thing that you have to do in this class, because there is no next thing. And also, when the final is over, the course is over. So please don't email me on Wednesday saying, what can I do now? Because it's over. So the final is truly the final piece of the entire course. Any questions on that? Any questions? Okay. And hopefully you're not even allowed to take this class again, because if you pass the class, you're not allowed to take it again. Okay. But I do want to also let you know that if you go out and let's say you transfer to wherever you're transferring, Sac State University or whatever you're transferring to, and you, I don't know, take a sociology class or do some research in sociology or whatever it might be, and you have to do some stats and you're stuck. Even though I'm not your instructor anymore, you can still send me an email, and I'll be happy to help you out in statistics post this class that you need. And my rule is that if you're a student, I help you out and I don't charge you. If you're not a student and it's for your business, do you know what the price is? Any guess? If I'm helping you?
$10.
Okay. It's complicated. So here's what I do. I say, what would you pay someone to do this? And then I ask you to send a check to the foundation at our college to donate to a scholarship. So I don't take money, but I do want you, if it's for your business, and I have had some businesses donate some thousands of dollars into scholarships after I spent literally weeks working with them, just volunteering, helping them out. And then they put that money into scholarship. Okay. So that's just a note. So again, I don't want your money, but I do want you to give back. That's all I ask for. Okay. But if you're a student, then that's different. And then it's like giving yourself a scholarship. So then I'm here to help you out. Okay. So that's what's going to happen after this class, is that, I'm still around, but, remind you. And by the way, I should mention something too. I don't know what most of you look like. If you ever see me in Tahoe, please tell me who you are. Don't expect me to know what you look like, because I don't see your faces, most of you. So say hi, you see my face, but that doesn't mean I'll recognize you, because I don't know what you look like. So, okay, so make sure that you remind me who you are, and then I'll smile and say hi and, oh yeah, I remember you from the class. I don't remember what you looked like, but I remembered your name, because that's mostly what I see, because most of you have your videos off most of the time. So just a note. What I'm going to do, so let me tell you what's next, because we've got a little less than an hour left. What I want to do is I want to spend the second part of this class, so when we get back from break, and that is doing practice. So I'll give problems, have you practice, we'll do them, but I want you to request what kind of problems that you want. So why don't we, it's 5 o'clock basically, why don't we take a 5-minute break and come back at 5:05, and then we'll and after that we'll practice problems that I could have written for the final. So I'm going to stop the share and Okay, welcome back. It's I see it's 5:05 on the clock. It's just becoming 5:06. So hopefully you took a nice break. Let's get back and let's do some practice problems. So I'm going to share my screen again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a request. So let me know what you want to practice. I'll create a problem for it. You can put it in the chat box or say it. So what would you like to practice?
I have a specific question from like the final structure sheet, and it's like on problem 20E, explain with calculations why it is or not is not appropriate to use the normal distribution for this hypothesis test.
Okay. All right. So let me see. And again, that was from final structure piece, which is not exactly the structure, but just I should warn you about that. But it's not that much different. That would be under modules, I think, right?
Oh yeah, it's under the final exam module.
Yeah, I actually haven't looked at that in a long time, like even this quarter. Yeah, notice that spring 20 final structure, but I figured I'd put that in to give you some practice. That was from a year ago. And which number?
It's 20E.
Okay. And I do want to let you know, this is a little different than the regular the final you're going to be taking. To be honest, when I gave the final a year ago, it was too long and so many people couldn't finish it. So I shortened it a lot. Just let you know that. So 20E. Okay. Right. Now, of course, there's a paragraph and you don't know what the paragraph is, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But it says explain with calculations why it is or is not appropriate to use a normal distribution for this hypothesis test. Why don't I pop, yeah, I see in the chat box, people want to practice proportions. Okay. And let me do that first, and then I'll do a probability problem too, but a little later. So let's practice the proportions question. And part E, or it'll be one of the parts, will be explain why not it's appropriate to use a normal distribution. Does that make sense? And that might give you an answer to that particular one. Does that make sense? So here's a suggestion, an example. Okay. And by the way, on the final exam, I usually research for percentages or averages or something. Here, I'm going to totally make it up so I can get this done, get this through fast. Hopefully you understand. Okay, so suppose that a researcher was interested in the difference in comparing how about UC students and CSU students feel about being required to be vaccinated to come back to campus in the fall. Okay, a sort of that's right, of the how about 287 of the 922 UC students who were surveyed did not feel the requirement is okay. Okay, and then let's throw another number in. 342 of the about 1037 CSU students do not feel who were surveyed do not feel the requirement is okay. And now let's do a whole bunch of things. A is I'm going to keep it kind of one big picture so I don't type as much, but conduct conduct the hypothesis test to see if there is a difference. And B is find and interpret the 95% confidence interval. And C is what you're asking. Was sample size large enough to use the normal distribution? Explain with calculations. Okay, so I shortened it a bit so I don't have to type so much. Hopefully you're okay with that. Okay, if it was a real test, I'd give you more parts in this hypothesis test. Oh, you meant probability, too late. But that's okay. We had a request for it. Okay. What I want you to do, I think it's worth it. Spend some minutes. Let's see if you can do this. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes to see if you can go through this, and I'll do it. So if you don't understand it and you're lost, you'll still get to see it. But I think it's very important for you to practice first, and then I'll do it. So give a few minutes. And you will need your calculator, by the way. I mean the calculator. And again, it would have more parts if it was a real exam question. I just didn't want to keep typing forever and waste your time. But you should be able to do all the parts. So I'll give you a few minutes. And again, if you have any questions, you can ask too. But I think it's definitely more valuable to try it yourself than to just watch me do it. and then watch me after. Give you a couple more minutes. Okay. I know you probably aren't finished yet, but at least you got started, hopefully. What's H naught? So I'm going to make it pretty because I can. With Google, it's really easy. What's H naught here? What is the null hypothesis?
P1 equals P2.
Yeah, now I'm going to go P UC because it's easier to understand. Equals P CSU.
Can't you just use P1 equals P2?
You can. I think the way I've written it is easier to understand what this means. So that's why I like to do it this way.
So, but you wouldn't be like written off for it, would you?
I won't take off points, but it is easier to understand what it means if you have it written this way.
That's your
Uh,
opinion.
Yeah, because the idea is, especially when you're doing confidence intervals, then we've got the beginning and end, and that it's important to know which is the first and which is the second. Otherwise, you'll have trouble with understanding the confidence interval. Okay, and H1.
In this case, would it be P sub UC does not equal P sub?
Right, right. And the key word here is difference. Difference is a not equal to. So P sub UC is not equal to P sub CSU. Any questions on H0 and H1? Okay, the next thing we need to do is we need to do what? What's the next step? Yeah, we have to go to our calculator. Okay, and again, on the test, it'll be embedded in there. But for us, I'm just clicking to the calculator. Which calculator do I use?
19.
Yeah, 19, two proportions, because we have a P1 and a P2, or a PUC and a PCSU. It asked for the sample size and the number of successes. The sample size was 922 for the first. And the number of successes was 287 for the first. And the sample size for the second one was 1,037. And the number of successes for the second was 342, and that's the CSUs. We got a not equal to, because that was our alternative hypothesis, had a not equal to. Confidence level was 0.95, and it calculated. Okay, so our test statistic is Z equals negative 0.88. Okay, the p-value was 0.38. Any questions on that? What's the conclusion? At least, how does it start?
There is statistically insignificant evidence to support the claim that the population proportion of UC students and CSU students differ from each other.
Right, but we probably should say who are,
Oh yeah.
because that's what it's about. Who
Yeah.
did not feel the requirement is okay, differs from, and now I'm going to do, copy and paste is great. And since you can do that on the exam, the population proportion of CSU students who do not feel the requirement is okay. I want to highlight those words right there. Okay, you will lose points if you don't have the word population. And if you wrote mean instead of proportion, that's not good either, because it's nothing to do with the mean. So just note, make sure that you're using those key words, whether it's population proportion or population mean, or if it's distribution for a chi-squared, goodness of fit or homogeneity, or if it's you know, at least two of the means are different, if it's ANOVA. So each one has its own way of writing it. But you need to have, for this type, is population proportion, and you're comparing two population proportions. Any questions on that? Okay, then find and interpret the 95% confidence interval. Well, we found it. That was easy. Okay. And I'm going to go 2 decimals, probably about right, because we're talking, I think percents work well for this. And it's negative 0.06 and 0.02. There. Okay, so that was our confidence interval. Now we need to interpret it. So we start with 95% confidence. We can state or say that and this is where it's important to know which was first. The UC was first, and it's always first minus second is the way the calculator does it. So if first minus second is negative, that means the second was more. Okay, so that we can say that the UC students population proportion who do not feel the requirement is okay. Feel the requirement is okay. And now we have these numbers. We have 6% is no more than 6% fewer. Negative is fewer, or I guess and no more than 2% greater than the.
Can't you just say no less than 6%? Or is it?
No less than 6% and no more than, yeah, same thing. There are a lot of ways of saying this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There isn't just one way of saying it, but what you have to say has to mean this. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I just thought saying no less than is easier than saying no more.
Yeah, it's definitely less words, but you know, I was just typing as fast as I could. So, but this is, as long as the meaning is the same, that's good enough. Does that make sense? That's all that matters. Okay. So, and so it's no more than 6% fewer, or you could say it is, it lags behind by at most 6%, and it's, you know, and it could be up to 2% greater. There's a lot of ways of wording the same thing. Then the population proportion of CSU students and now I can copy and paste. Who do not feel the requirement is okay. Any questions on this? Okay, and again, it you know, English, there's lots of ways of expressing the same thing, but the meaning has to be this. That's the important thing. That you're really describing what the lower bound means and what the upper bound means. The lower bound, if it's negative, means it can't lag behind by any more than that. And if it's positive, then it can't be any, it has to be at least that amount if it's the lower bound. More. Okay, now comes the question that you had originally. Was the sample size large enough to use the normal distribution? Explain with calculations. And the important thing is, let's go to the question. Okay. And our sample sizes were 922 and 1037, but it's not enough to just look at those numbers. How do proportions work? Do you remember? For sample size analysis.
Doesn't it n times the proportion have to be greater than 5?
Yeah, n times the proportion of yes and no.
Oh, yes and no, yeah.
But the nice thing, the 1 to 20 is different. I probably won't test you on that, or I know I won't test you on that. That was more for your project. That's a whole different thing. For the 1 to 20 is not about the normal distribution. That has to do with some deeper stuff that I don't ever talk about. Other than I had to tell you that you just have to make sure of that for your project. Does that make sense? It's too deep to even explain why the 1 to 20 thing, but I can tell you it has to be. But here, this comes to the central limit theorem. And you don't have to calculate NP. What is NP for the UC students?
The number of successes.
I'm looking for a number.
Oh, 287.
287. There's nothing to do there.
Yeah.
Okay, so NP is 287.
I just didn't know how like to word the question, to answer it.
Right, so you're seeing it now. So NP equals 287.
I knew that it had to be greater than 5.
And 287 is definitely greater than 5.
Yeah.
Okay, and let me write NP. This was for the UCs. Okay. And then we also have to have NQ for the UCs. How do we get NQ from these numbers? It's very easy.
Can we just subtract 287 from 22?
Exactly. If 287 said yes, they don't think it's okay. Then 922 minus 287 are the ones that say no. And again, you can use that calculator, or you can do the one my way, but you probably won't. And that is do it in your head, and I get what, 635. Okay. So NQ is 635. That's certainly greater than 5. We also need NP for the CSUs. And that was 342. That's certainly greater than 5.
So is this how you've been wanting us to format it the entire time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you don't have to do parentheses CSU. However you want to explain, that's fine. But yeah, you have to show the greater than 5. So you have to show greater than 5. That's the important thing. You could also say, and you could say this 287, 635, 342, and then I'll do the last one, are all greater than 5. That's another way of formatting. Okay, but you have to say that they're greater than 5. Okay, and then for the last one, you take the 1037 minus 342, and that is 695. So that was NQ for the CSU was equal to 695, greater than 5. So the central limit theorem tells us the sample size is large enough. To use the normal distribution. Any questions on that? Does that answer your question completely?
Yes.
Okay, good, good. Just a note, by the way, if it's a quantitative question, don't do this. Then what do you do?
If it's quantitative, it has to be 31 or greater.
Yeah, greater than 30 or 31 and greater, however you want to write that. So don't get those confused. Okay. And it's really easy once you've done the hypothesis test. If you got a P here, we're talking proportions. If you have a mu, then you're talking quantitative. So, keep that in mind. If you got your H naught and H1, then you've got that down. If you're doing confidence intervals, well, if you use the calculator for proportions, then you know that it's NP and NQ greater than 5. Whereas if you use the calculator for means, then it's going to be your N greater than 30 or greater than or equal to 31, however you want to write that. Any questions on that? Did that help to see this example? Okay. There was some questions. There was a request for a probability, but I have to ask you, there's a bunch of probability types. So there's a probability where it's kind of a wordy kind of question. There's a probability where it's a table. Like exam 1. Okay, I have to go to exam 1 on it. I got to be honest, I don't have it memorized. Given in them, but I could do given, I'll give them, but do you want wordy or do you want table? Do you want contingency table or wordy? Because those are the two main ones. Okay, you want wordy. Okay, so let me do a wordy one. Okay, suppose means don't quote me on this. I'm just making this up. For your exam, I'll research it and find out what the percents are. Okay, so suppose that, how about, they make something up. How about, 40% of all coyotes in Tahoe survive the winter. Okay. And let's say 61% of all Tahoe coyotes are female. Okay, again, please don't quote me. I'm totally making these up. If I were to do it for the test, I'd look it up. And we also know that 43% of all Tahoe coyotes, of all female Tahoe coyotes, survive the winter. Okay, so now you want some, these are wordy. Is that wordy enough for you? Y'all want a wordy. Okay, again, I made these numbers up. Don't quote me on these. Okay, but they could be found. Okay, so if you randomly select a coyote, what is the probability? Actually, how about a coyote who survived the winter? what is the probability that the coyote is female? Any questions on the question? Okay, I'll give you about a minute. Shouldn't take longer than that to answer this. You know, either you'll get it in a minute or you'll have no idea and then you'll wait until I show you how to do it. But it is what you wanted. They are challenging. They are challenging. It's not a trick question, but it's a challenging question. Yeah, I agree. These are the hardest ones. Okay. And I don't think it's because, you know, I haven't figured out a good way of teaching it. These are just hard. And it's not just you, every class, these are the toughest. But I will guarantee there won't be any more than one question on this kind of stuff. So don't spend all your time just practicing this. Make sure you practice everything else. There could be 0, there could be 1. Okay, let's take a look. So the first thing is we need to read the question. We're selecting a coyote who survived a winter. That means we're told this coyote survived a winter. That's a given problem. We want the probability of the coyote's a female. So we're going to find the probability of female given, let's call W for winter. Any questions on how I read that sentence and then wrote down P of F given W? Any questions on that? Okay, equal to. All right, now there's a formula for this. And that is the probability of F given W is the probability of F and W over the probability of W. Any questions on that? Okay, that was just one of the formulas from chapter 3. Okay, then the probability of F and W is the probability of W given F times the probability of F. That was another formula we had. Again, it's been a while. Still divided by the probability of W. Any questions on that formula? Now we just plug in. The rest is easy, actually. I think you'll agree. So the probability of W given F, well, that's a probability that they'll survive the winter given they're female. Well, we're told that 43% of all female Tahoe coyotes survive the winter. That's 0.43. And then times the probability of F, probability of being a female, is 0.61. And then the probability of surviving the winter is 0.4. And my guess is you don't need help with how to put that in a calculator, do you? Okay, let's do another one just for fun, part B. Suppose Y.4, 40% of Tahoe coyotes survive the winter. So that's the probability of W. Right? Probability of surviving the winter is 40% or 0.4. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Again, it's much easier to watch than to do. That's for sure with these. Suppose you saw $15 coyotes in the fall. What is the probability that at least 6 of them will survive the winter? I'll even write will be alive in the spring. All right, give you short time to do this. We don't have that much time left. The main thing is, do you know what kind of problem this is? That's the hardest part of these, is to identify what the strategy is. And then once you know the strategy, this is easy. Okay, so what's the strategy? Any thoughts? Okay, if you don't know, let me tell you, it's the binomial calculator. Because we're choosing many coyotes, each has the same probability of surviving. We're going to find the probability that at least 6 of them will survive. So I'm going to go to my binomial calculator. At least 6 means 6, and the high is 15 because there's 15 of them. The trials are also 15, and P is 0.4. And hit calculate. And I get about 0.5968. Again, very easy to do if you know what to do. Well, we're about out of time. So I want to at least, any questions on this question? Hopefully is what you kind of the thing you wanted to see. All right. Well, I'm going to stop my share. And I want to let you know, I hope you all do well in the final. I will be around. Brawley will be around to help you out in terms of, getting ready for that final exam. So between now and Tuesday, so another 5 days and 10 minutes, hopefully, you push it and you really get that stats going, and then you can relax. Then you could take a break, party, whatever you like to do, but wait until after 6 p.m. on Tuesday. And hopefully the class hopefully you understand why this class is important. It's not just throwing a bunch of math at you that is useless. Hopefully you get why this is needed. Yeah, this is important in every field. Okay, but it is 5:50, so thanks a lot. I'm going to stop the recording.